Hello, it's Anna Beckwith from Yara Consulting here. What I wanted to do today is introduce you to, or if you've come across this before, provide a bit of a refresher for Daniel Ofman's core qualities theory. Now, if you've been on training courses before, you will know that trainers love these grids and matrices, but there's actually a really good reason for it. As you can imagine, with theories such as this one, there's an awful lot of academic research that goes into it, looking into best practice and theory and so forth. These matrices enable us to distill it down to, well, to cut to the chase basically, to distill it down to something that we can actually work with on a day-to-day basis. Now, I really like this particular theory of Daniel Ofman. I've used it a lot when I've been coaching people, when I've been working with people on their self-confidence and their self-esteem, and I found it incredibly useful myself, which is why I wanted to share it with you today. So, let's take a look at it. So here we have our matrix here. We start over here, Ofman says. We have core qualities. Now, everybody has core qualities, and these would be your strengths. So think about, what is it that you're good at? What is it that people respect and admire you for? What is it that people ask for your help on? Let's take as our example somebody who's very, very organised. Always in demand. I hardly need say this is a critical skill. If you're not organised, you're just not going to get anything done. It's as stark as that. So we have somebody who's very, very meticulously organised. They have a plan, they always know where they're going, they always know what they're doing. Now, says Ofman, that's great. It's a core quality. However, what happens when we have too much of a good thing? It actually becomes a pitfall. So what happens when somebody is perhaps a little bit too organised? Well, I'm sure we've all known people like that, perhaps in the workplace, who always have a plan. They know what they're doing. Oftentimes, if an emergency parachutes in from the outside, that person can become very flustered because it wasn't part of their plan. Perhaps when new creative ideas come up, they're the first person to say, no, we can't do that because we're doing this. It's not part of the plan. So what started out as a strength, too much of it can actually be a bad thing. The theory moves on. This person who's very, very organised needs to still remain organised, but learn a new skill. They need to develop. And their development area in this particular case is to just learn to let go a little bit. To not be so rigid and inflexible, which is the negative side of that organisation. Maybe to be a little bit more relaxed. If something happens outside the plan, that's okay. We still need the plan, but we don't need to follow it quite so rigidly. And that person needs to work on this, needs to accept that there are alternatives to the plan. However, we move on, because actually if we're too spontaneous and too go with the flow, that also has a downside. So too much spontaneity actually strays into this area. Now, what happens if you're too spontaneous, too creative, too disorganised? Well, you're not going to get things done. It is going to appear chaotic. You might be grabbing every new idea and actually not moving forward at all because you have no plan. You're just all over the place. Fun it might be, but it's not actually getting anything done. So there's a downside to this if there's too much of it as well. The interesting point, and this for me is where the rubber hits the road, is that this allergy is going to be what the person with that core quality fears. So the question is, what are you afraid of? The person who's really, really organised is likely to fear chaos and disorganisation, likely to fear being seen as chaotic and disorganised. And here's the thing. That fear of chaos is actually likely psychologically to prevent them from developing the skills in that area that they actually do need. So hold that thought. What is it that you're afraid of, and how might it be holding you back? Now, just to prove that I'm not having a go at organised people, let's work through that example the other way round. Let's imagine that somebody has a core quality that is very creative and spontaneous. People go to them for new ideas, they go to them for inspiration perhaps. Too much, that person might be seen as chaotic and disorganised. The comer-up of ideas, but somebody who isn't able to follow through on any of them. And that's not a useful thing. That person needs to learn rather, to be more organised, to actually come up with the ideas, but to put them into action, to formulate the plan, perhaps with the help of the organised person. They need to be able to plan and be more organised. The fear for that creative and spontaneous person is being rigid, being inflexible, being boring, being dull. Because almost inevitably the person who is organised will see the creative, spontaneous person in negative terms. Oh, they're all over the place. The creative, spontaneous person will see the organised person as dull and boring. And actually the point is, both of them are strengths. Both of them, if there's too much, there are pitfalls. Both of them need to learn new skills. Both of them need to really consider, what is it that I'm afraid of that might be holding me back from learning those new skills? Now, as I was preparing this and talking it through with my husband, he actually said to me, so somebody like you who likes to communicate, their pitfall might be that they talk too much. So with that in mind, I'll leave it there. If you want any more information though, quick Google search Daniel Ofman's Core Qualities Theory.